It's regular hot dogs. We also have some andouilles, a little bit of spice will be fun to try, particularly with that chilled Cab Franc, I'd imagine. Right here from Neiman Ranch. And then we have two fake sausages. From the Beyond Meat Company, we have a regular brat and we have a hot Italian. Those are actually probably the hardest sausages to cook, actually. So we're plating them up right now. I'm going to come inside and talk to Karen and Brett about the wine. Steve here is going to continue cooking and plate these sausages up, and we can have a taste test with all of them. And I believe there's also 3 different dipping sauces, or many different dipping sauces to try with the sausages as well. So I don't know. Should I talk about something else? I think that's probably good for now. We can go back inside and start to taste some wine as these sausages come out and come to your guys' plate. So we can have a big battle as to which sausage pairing works the best. So wines are coming out now, and I'll see you inside in a few minutes. I think they're all.
So feel free to shout out questions. We love that. There are no silly questions. We actually love silly questions. If there are silly questions, that would be great.
Yeah. Karen, my question, we had a horrible heat, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Cooled down. More horrible heat.
Yeah.
What's the harvest looking like with those fluctuations? What's going on?
So it's been, you'll be shocked to hear that it's it's a little unusual this year in 2020 for harvest. We thought it would be really late. When Sarah was planning to come back from Indonesia to help us, I'm like, yeah, we're probably not going to even start anything until after Labor Day, because as you recall, if you live here, it's been cool in the spring, it wasn't hot, and then it got really hot. So we started picking Sauvignon Blanc after that first heat, right? Was it after that first heat? Yeah, it was. We picked about 35 ton of Sauvignon Blanc already, and what we're doing, and then we stopped because we knew this was coming. And what we're doing is we're just giving the vine some water to just so the plants are not, wilting. And we're going to start picking again on Tuesday. So the reason we give them a little bit of water is just because we don't want them to ripen by dehydration. We want them to continue to ripen normally, so that you're getting all that beautiful flavor in the skin without you getting a lot of raisining character to it. But they're very flavorful. So the other interesting thing that happened was we had a really short time between when we first started to see color change, which is called veraison, and the time that the grapes started tasting delicious, which I came running back into the winery to poor Brett going taste this. And he's like, what is that? I'm like, it's Sauvignon Blanc, and it doesn't taste just like acid. So it's gonna be a flavorful year. Crop yields are probably comparable to last year, so I'm guessing we'll pick about 120 ton here on this state.
It's nice in here. Pretty hot out there. Standing to a fire.
Were you affected by the smoke at all?
Smoke, we had a lot of smoke here, but nothing compared to other places, and nothing we have to worry about smoke taint. Yeah.
So in the past few weeks, we've had 2 kinds of very different heat. We had very high humidity heat, and then it was by the lightning storms and the out enclosure. I was here, I remember. And then a very dry heat. Are any these better or worse for the grapes? High humidity or dry conditions, but still both hot?
Dry is better because we don't like mold or mildew spores growing. So nothing's going to grow in this kind of heat. But yeah, the humidity is a little weird because first of all, humans aren't used to it. That's just kind of weird. Sarah is, she just came from Indonesia. She's like, yeah, this is humid. So drier is better because we're not going to get any mold or mildew pressure. Should we have some wine?
Let's have some wine. I'm thirsty.
So we're going to pour the Cabernet, the Kayla.
Carbonique was first, and it was on the end. So
chill.
Yeah.
Well, you should be able to tell the difference between chilled wine and the not chilled.
And Steve's going to be getting the sausage out to you guys real soon here.
Chilled on our left. Not chilled on our right. And the condiments, like Matt said to me, like, what about condiments? I'm like, well, that should be really interesting, right? I mean, does anything like that you put on a sausage or a hot dog go with wine at all? So,
Not relish, not mustard really.
sauerkraut?
Sauerkraut, maybe? So what started this project, the Carbonique?
So, as I recall, our vines are very old, right? They're in 1983. They're planted on their own roots, and they tend to be very small berries. So we get a lot of kind of old world style in our crop. We get a lot of tannin. We got a lot of body. But we struggle to have a lot of the fruit come through. So the idea of doing a little bit of the carbonic Cabernet Franc was to because when you ferment something carbonically, you get a lot of fruit character on it. So our idea was like, why don't we do a little bit of carbonic as a blender so that we can pump up the fruit in our Cabernet Franc bottle.
Kind of lift the freshness factor, basically.
Yeah. And then we liked it so much we didn't really follow it. It didn't go into the Franc.
And have you explained like the carbonic process at all to everybody?
No, I'll let Brett do that because I make him do it.
It's basically a completely different way of making wine.
Yeah, totally. And so when I first tasted this, it's very different from anything we have in the cellar too. So, initially we did think of it as a blending component, and that's what it was destined to be. And then we just really liked it a lot, and it's a really cool, fruit-forward, herbaceous, light summer wine that's perfect for this heat. So we decided to do a bottling of it. So it's a totally different fermentation process in itself. A traditional fermentation is very aerobic. You want to involve oxygen. The yeast really likes and thrives on an oxidative state. It helps fermentation be healthy. This is totally different. So in a normal fermentation, you would have a big open top vessel that would release all the CO2, the carbon dioxide, because when things are fermenting, off-gassing the CO2 is a byproduct. So this instead is taking whole cluster fruit, so not destemmed, and sticking it into a closed vessel. So everybody here can see these tanks, but everybody at home, if you just imagine a giant tank that is closed on the top, no, you're part of it too.
Oh, I'm on the bottom though. I'm not climbing any stairs.
Anyways, we bucket brigade these whole clusters of Cabernet Franc. You stick it in a bucket, haul it up the steps, and fill up one of this small tank right here with about a ton and a half of fruit, and then close it up.
Uncrushed or anything. Just
Totally uncrushed, yeah. And with the weight of the fruit, some does get crushed on the bottom, and you want that to start the fermentation process a little bit. But what's really cool about this is the fermentation process starts inside the berry, so intracellular. It starts to release enzymes, and you start to ferment from the inside of the berry. And so that's what sort of enables the fruit to give more of a fruit-forward nose, flavor profile. And another thing that you typically do in a normal ferment is to encourage an oxidative environment. You do what's called punch downs or pump overs, and you literally take a tool and you punch down the cap. So there's none of this in the carbonic maceration. The fruit literally just sits there, hangs out, CO2 starts to be produced, and it does its thing. And then
So there's a state where you could go in and pull out basically boozy berries, essentially.
Totally.
Totally.
Yeah, and actually what you end up doing is you dig out the tank. So we'll test the bricks, and when the juice is dry, we pull it out, but there's still a lot of sugar in the berries to be fermented. So we dig it out, and it's still probably at 15 bricks, so it still has a ways to go. But out of the tank, we dig it out, it's these whole clusters of boozy grapes.
Yeah.
And that goes gets a lot less of, so when you're doing punch downs and pump overs, you're releasing a lot of those tannins from the skin. You get a lot more color and flavor. You're not really doing that. So that's why it creates a much lighter style of wine than our typical Cab Franc.
And what was the first vintage of the Carbonique?
17?
Yeah.
Am I thinking 19?
Yeah.
So the wines are also ready.
Well, this is 19 actually.
19.
Yeah, this is 19.
So the wines are ready for red wine. That's pretty quick because I would be drinking 19s right now.
Yeah. And that's kind of just the style that you want. Well, it's the style you want to drink.
Right.
That's how we make it. It's meant to be drank on the younger side.
Yeah. So I taste like 200, 300 wines a month for Wine Enthusiast, and so from all over the Central Coast, so I get kind of a very wide range of wines. But this fits into this emerging trend of these lighter, fresher red grapes that can be chilled, red wines that can be chilled, and I love it. I mean, I think you can drink this wine like now on a hot day. It's refreshing. There's not a lot of alcohol in it, so you can kind of. It's one of those bottles that all of a sudden it's gone. You know, you're like, oh wait, what happened? We just drank the whole bottle. You know? Where's the next one? So, and I see that as a real trend happening really across the world right now, and particularly on the Central Coast because we have such coastal influence. You can make these fresher styles of wine much easier than other places that are warmer and with more intense daytime highs. So, anyway, I really like this wine, and I think it fits in this trend, and it's a really good example of that.
It is a little frightening, I have to say, because in normal winemaking, like if you're, for instance, if I'm making any other wine in a tank, and I've added yeast, and it's using an aerobic type of fermentation in a normal way, you must allow the CO2 to escape, or if you lock down that tank, the tank will explode. Right, so it literally will just burst its seams and it will explode. It will be a giant bomb. So we're very careful whenever we're doing anything with wine, just like, is it vented? Is it vented? And this one, it's totally locked down. So, I mean, my desk was near one of these tanks. We do this, and I just kept watching to see if it was bulging. So that was like totally a little frightening. Sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, we tend to make a bunch of different wines here for different things. And because you are all club members that are here live, you're kind of our focus group as well. Sorry, but this is not a wine that everyone's going to love because you get a little bit of that stemmy character. You taste a little bit of the whole cluster fermentation in it as well. It's a little bit of a nerdy, geeky wine, and we love it. So sometimes we make wines. This one actually did bottle it for ourselves. I mean, Brett and I figure we can drink 40 cases of wine.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. But, so what do you think about the difference in temperature?
I really like it. But
Oh, yeah.
I always thought it would be just temperature and stuff. That's very different. But my sister loves rosé, and I think she would really like something like this because it's so light. She always thought that it was too heavy for her.
Yeah.
So it makes me want to get some.
I enjoy chilled wines. I mean, obviously when it's hot out, it's more enjoyable. But temperature obviously has a lot to do with flavor profile and notes and the aromatics that are released. So it's kind of cool when you chill the wine. It closes up a little bit, and as you drink it, as it warms up, it releases new flavors, and you get the full profile of the wine. And I really enjoy that about chilled wines.
So tend to like we tend to drink. Matt will tell you. We tend to drink white wines too cold and red wines too warm. Isn't that kind of true?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, even like a big Napa Cab, you should probably have it as more slightly chilled, cellar temperature, you would say. So not as cold as a refrigerator, obviously, but much colder than what we usually get it at, which is like room temperature, which is not really right for any kind of wine. Yeah. And then with white wines, if they are too cold, you lose a lot of the character there. That said, some style blondes you want pretty cold, right? I mean, they're crisp, bright wines that do kind of reflect all they have at a colder temperature. But particularly as you get into Chardonnays and some of the white Rhones, you definitely want a little more warmth there. I wouldn't say warmth, you just don't want them freezing cold because there's a lot of these kind of broader flavors that don't come out until they're at that kind of cellar temperature. So that's what's great about a white bottle of wine too. You put it on the table when it's freezing cold. As you slowly drink it, the wine will change, you know, in your glass basically, and as it sits there. And same with reds too. You can start them cold. Maybe they're too cold to start, but by the time you're in your second glass, you're at the right temperature. So that's what's fun about just, you know, talking about a bottle of wine and drinking it at the same time. So sausage-wise, there's no roadmap here, but the hot dogs ones are the ones that look like hot dogs. There's the andouille, are these the ones that almost have like a pepper kind of flake to them, you can see. And then there's the two bratwursts, which are, one's a beer brat, one's the other brat. I think those are going to taste pretty similar. And then there's some of you have the fake sausages too, which look kind of like fake sausages. And where are they? They have the condiments?
Oh, yeah, Kayla's just bringing them around.
Okay, cool.
They're
The
coming.
condiments, yeah.
I love chili.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a good hot dog is really good. I feel like we're doing a hot dog.
I think if you don't have kids, you don't have hot dogs very often.
I was going to say, I have two young kids, and
Yeah.
we get our share of hot dogs.
Because Brett and I are like doing a taste test, you know, because it's for you.
You gotta do the research.
You gotta do that. And we're both like, my God, these hot dogs are so good.
They're really good.
Brett's got a young child, but maybe it's not quite hot dog yet.
Not quite hot dog yet. We're at the mac and cheese stage.
Mac and cheese. That stage persists.
Yeah.
That's okay, Saturday night poker, there's always hot dogs.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's right.
There you go.
See, I don't know how to play poker, so I have to learn.
So how have people enjoyed this style? Are your club members and your fans kind of getting it?
So we just tried to release it when the power went out, so it's just getting out there now.
Right now?
Yeah. Right
But
now.
we liked it.
I think it's tough to kind of wrap your head around the different fermentation styles. So if you don't get the good explanation up front, I think it can kind of be lost on how this wine is pretty special in the way it's made. A lot of people do really like it. Some people don't. Some people think it's a little too funky, but like Aaron was saying, I mean, it's a very nerdy wine that we really enjoy.
But also,
we like to share those things.
Perfect by the glass at restaurants and stuff.
Oh, restaurants.
Restaurants, yeah. But these are the kind of wines that you like by the glass too, right? It's almost like an aperitif wine too. Yeah.
So you guys all know Beaujolais Nouveau, right? So Beaujolais Nouveau, that's made in this same method. That's a carbonic maceration method. So the reason those are so crude forward and the reason they're always released so early on whatever that day is, February,
No,
March.
it's November.
That's
Before
okay.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, sorry. I don't know
And
what.
those still have a lot of those have some sweetness left in them. So
Yeah.
They weren't fermented all the way dry. But even just like the cru Beaujolais, which is Gamay Noir. So Beaujolais is where they grow Gamay Noir, and the Beaujolais Nouveau are those carbonic styles. But even the cru Beaujolais, which is the more kind of serious wines, if you will, those often reflect very carbonic flavors too. So I'm not sure if that means they're doing some carbonic and then blending it in, or if that's just the nature of Gamay. Gamay just has that kind of fresh red fruit flavor too. But that's a good place to start if you're trying to find wines like this as well. Just looking for other Gamays, which they're very little planted on the Central Coast, but more and more is being planted, and they're pretty delicious wines too. But Cab Franc, so from the Loire Valley, Cab Franc can be made in this style too, right? So that fresher, brighter style of Cab is an old world tradition from the Loire Valley for sure. And it also, you know, you can pick up some of that minerality on there too. You know, that fresh fruit is there, but then there's kind of a structure with that almost like a rocky flavor to it too, which is fun. So
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
favorites of sausage yet?
Spicy.
The spicy one? The andouille?
Surprisingly, the meatless is pretty good.
Was it
Is
good?
it?
Normally a fan of that.
That's the thing.
I like a lot of meatless stuff. Like Impossible Burgers, I think are pretty good. I didn't actually have one of the meatless on my plate. I'll have to go get one, but I haven't had a good meatless sausage yet. There's something about sausage that
Yeah.
you need the fat, yeah, and the oil kind of, you know. it
Which
fits-
one's the meat?
It's the kind of grainier looking one. I don't have one.
It's one of the bigger ones.
Was it A-tail?
It was Beyond Meat.
Oh, beyond meat.
Yeah.
Is it kind of orange color?
Yeah, orange.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it actually looked like the other one.
Sawdust, yeah, there you go.
Sawdust.
One of the trees we cut down out here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think once we get into the 2017 or traditional Cab Franc, just pay attention to the tannin profile, because that's a big difference between the carbonic method and a traditional fermentation method.
And that's because it's not on the skins, basically, right?
Correct. Yeah, and it's not getting any punch downs or pump overs or anything like that. So with our traditional Cab Franc, you get a little bit more of that structure.
And you need protein, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, which makes the Cab Franc a really good wine to pair with these sausages.
France.
good things. How'd you come up with this idea, Karen?
I have a very strange sense of humor, as you know. Well, you know, my last time to Steinwalk too, you know, people used to call me, you know, children are in school, Frankenstein walks. Yeah.
That's what you should call this event.
Any other questions out there? Should we go on to,
Move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So do you guys just show of hands, do you like it cold or not cold? How about cold?
Yeah. I think everybody's.
Any not cold? No? I was gonna go to that.
so you're thinking you came back in December?
Yeah. Thank you.
Mine's good at it.
Wine is good age, that's true, but I, you know.
I grew up in
All right, so-
11 times. Well, now we're going on to number 2. I know you. And that's fine. Well, I grew up.
Steve Escobar, everybody.
Escobar. Great to see you. So we're gonna go to, for the 17 and the 17.
Might as well, we have two glasses.
So I'm gonna put the 17 on my right.
So we're gonna actually pour both of the next wines ourselves. You're welcome to do that too, or just go one at a time. So we have the 2017 Cab Franc in the normal style,
What do we call it?
and then we have the 07. So we can talk about like ageability of the Cab Franc as well. Can you pass that, Karen? The 07. You need a hand. I love tasting older wines. It's always a fun look back into the past and what that vintage was like and
Yes.
what you were doing. I got married in 2007, so there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh. Same as awesome.
Yeah.
It was my first year here at Buttonwood.
So the first one is the 17,
On our right.
On our right,
and the second one is the 07.
2007, yeah.
And you can tell the 07 because it's showing a little bit of that browner color in the glass.
Remember that great event you had up here, the Cab Franc event?
Yeah, Farm
On top
Fest.
of that, so many people who didn't have tasting rooms were offering Cab Franc, and the whole evening or afternoon was dedicated to Cab Franc. That was great.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
That was, we did it last year at Gainey.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, probably not this year.
You know,
I look forward to having events again.
and I learned to like Cab Franc then, that was really eye-opening. Yeah.
There's some really good farm producers here in Santa Barbara County.
And there's a wide range of expressions, particularly across the Central Coast. When you like Paso, but even in Santa Barbara County, you get, you know, on the lighter edge would be the Carbonique and that kind of style, and then you get, you know, there's also darker styles than these that can be made. And to me, sometimes when you get too dark with Cab Franc, you kind of lose the varietal character. You're kind of like, are you making a Cab or a Syrah? What are you making? I like the Cab Francs that maintain that kind of herbal quality, which is what the grape tastes like, really, right? So why try to? Some places just try to make it in this big, huge style, and they can be delicious wines because they're good wines, but they don't reflect Cab Franc to me so much. You know?
Your magazine just did something on Cab Franc. There's a big,
I think so, yeah. But was it old world?
it was mostly over,
Yeah.
but it was about Cab Franc, which is lovely to see because it was always this kind of like in the background grape, right?
And right, like the history of Cab Franc is actually it's apparent to Cab Sauv, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Sometime in the
older
14th
grape, the family
century,
bush. Yeah.
yeah, Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc got together in the middle of the night. Result was Cabernet Sauvignon.
Will you guys talk a little bit about what you look for in pairing wine with food and how to properly pair that?
I mean, yeah, I think I'll preface this by saying sometimes maybe too much attention is paid to that, you know, because really if the food's good and the wine's good, so they kind of go together. But when it comes to like traditional pairing techniques, you want, I mean, you pair richness with richness to some extent, right? Especially on the heavier end of reds. So you want like that big steak with that big red. What I like about Santa Barbara County wines in general is that even our bigger wines have this freshness that cuts through it, right? So there's just kind of this coastal influence that keeps this energy and like freshness in the wines. And so that makes them work well with kind of a variety of foods. Because you also want that acidity to cut through that fat too. If you're pairing like a real pruny, heavy-duty cab with heavy food, it's almost just too much, right? So you do still want some of that acidity in that wine to cut through. I like pairing weird, and this is kind of a fun, interesting pairing. Although it actually works quite well because it's a savory meat thing, going with kind of a medium-bodied, herbally inflected wine, especially with the cool version too. And so that's a kind of a great pairing. But it's fun for me to try like weird things. I mean, obviously there's certain ones you don't want to do, like whitefish and reds just typically don't work. Even with the carbonique, it can be a little bit tough, you know. But you could do salmon with plenty of reds, you know, especially if it's cooked over oak fire, you know.
Yeah, I think we found when we were doing our little taste test at the end, it was a little tough because of the spice. The spice kind of made it tough to really pair properly with the wine.
That can be a problem with a lot, yeah, because like with a lot of Asian food has a great spice, and Mexican food has a great spice to it. But it's hard to find sometimes those wines. But like a Sauv Blanc can handle that, you know. Gewürztraminer can handle that. Some of those aromatic whites are pretty good. Or a hop Sauv Blanc, perfect. Some of those aromatic whites can really work with those spicy foods. And that's like with Mexican food, you know, you get some really savory roasted meat dishes that go perfectly well with a wide range of wines. And you know, winemakers here know that. I mean, you're constantly eating Mexican food making wine, so there's like some of the best pairings ever happening that way. You know,
Tacos are pretty much our staple.
Yeah.
During harvest.
right.
During all year.
Yeah.
Me too, pretty much.
So the 2017 is made in a traditional way. What that means is that we remove the berries from the stems. So in Carbonique, the stems were included. So in we just call it Cab Franc, the stems are removed. Berries go into a 4x4x4 open top box, really. And we add yeast. We do add yeast here. We have a particular one that we like, which is called BDX. You don't care, but and then we just like once it starts to ferment, like 2 and 3 times a day, we gently punch down the cap because what's happening is now these berries are producing CO2 as well as ethanol. CO2 is raising these berries to the top of this box, and the juice wine is staying below. So what we want to do is try to extract absolutely everything we can from the skins of these berries because that's basically where everything is. All the color is there, the flavor is there, the tannin is there. What you get from the inside of the berry is really liquid, the acids, and some of the tannins from the seeds. But so we're just kind of like if you're making bread, we're gently folding this over as if in a meringue. And that's happening for 2 to 3 weeks. We're also managing the temperature because fermentation increases the temperature. It can go up to 80 degrees, and we're trying to keep that at around 70 degrees. We like a hot fermentation on this. And then once this is finished with primary fermentation, all the sugar has been converted to ethanol. We're going to move this, we're going to press it, and that presses outside gently so that we get all the extra goodness out of those skins. And that goes into French oak barrels. We use French oak from only one cooper for Cabernet Franc called Bel Air, which is a center of France cooper, smaller cooper, very tight grained wood, and a toast that is not going to give us an awful lot of that, you know, that big toasty thing, but it's going to give us texture and some of this nice vanillin that we're getting from, which I get from this one right now. And that's about 20% of that is new French oak barrels. And I will tell you that even though a lot of people are giving deals on things, the Coopers in France are not. And every barrel costs about €850.
They've been growing those trees for 20
I
years.
know. But you would think that a little bit of break would be nice. And that's before shipping. So a new French oak barrel will give you some kind of flavor profile help for about 3 uses. So after the next vintage and the next vintage, it will just provide a vessel.
And that's what people say they use neutral oak. That's because it's been used enough so that you're just using it as a vessel, not as a flavoring component. Do you get any tannic extraction even from neutral barrels or no? Because the new barrels will add tannin too to the wine. So the tannin will come from the seed and the skin of the grapes, and then new barrels will kind of infuse some of that tannin too, just from the oak chemicals. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is the difference in flavor between a French oak and an American oak? Are they the same genus species, or does it just have to do with temperature where they're grown?
It's a different tree. I mean, they're different looking
Oh,
trees.
different trees.
They're oaks. They're all oak.
I mean,
They're
there's
all
so many
quercus.
different types of oak.
But there's a bunch of different types of oak, yeah. When I taste, so American oak you see more in, a lot of Zinfandel uses American oak. You get more oak flavor from, more bold oak flavor from American oak typically, and also I think a grittier tannin to some extent.
So compare a Frenchman to a Texan.
That's all needs to be said.
Yeah, you see a lot of American oak more in bourbons and whiskeys and stuff.
Right.
You just see a little bit more of an aggressive style oak.
But
Yeah,
here's,
we use some.
here's a funny thing. So
Cheaper, right?
it is
Yeah.
much less expensive. So a number of years ago, I had this really good friend of mine who used to stay with me during harvest. He was helping Doug Margaret with his wines. You probably met Jason Barrett.
Yeah.
So Jason was the vintage winemaker at Penfolds, and he made Grange. And they use all American oak for Grange.
Yeah.
So it's the most expensive wine in the world.
They must use the best American oak.
And I was like, well, if it's good enough for Grange, I'll try it, right?
Yeah.
So we tried to get some American oak, and that was about the same time the damn bourbon craft guys were starting out,
Yeah.
and you couldn't get it, right? So it's about a third of the cost of a French oak barrel. Now we get a few, and we're trying in our cab. We really like it.
You do? Yeah. By itself?
We have a lot of toasted, or the heads of the barrels are American oak.
Okay, right.
So it has some.
And then you also see Hungarian oak is out there, Slovenian oak is out there, and then people are using like acacia.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, acacia wood, yeah. I don't know, I've had some acacia wines, I can't tell a huge difference. It seems to maybe impart a little bit more of a floral character, but I don't know if that's just my brain playing.
We look
Yeah.
the trees.
Cool, yeah.
We're not gonna make Ritzina though. So.
Yeah. And you don't have an acacia barrel, I think. You do have a concrete egg though.
Yeah.
What's that for the Grenache Blanc? What are you using?
Oh, this year we're gonna try it for Chenin.
Oh,
Yeah,
do you have Chenin on property?
we do.
Do you usually bottle Chenin?
It'll be the first year.
What do you, so you've sold it before? Or?
No, it's
Young
kind of a new.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Chenin's one of those grapes that was one of the most widely planted white grapes in like the early days of modern California viticulture. And because it would boost up Chardonnays, and it was kind of it's a very malleable grape. You can make it in the bright, fresh style. You can make it in the kind of a creamier, denser style. And then it fell out of favor. But now it's back. I'm seeing a lot more Chenin. It's very good wine.
I mean, maybe you know, and you can attest to a lot of this. Like, as soon as something is very popular, everybody plants it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
given the sideways phenomenon, which I'm still annoyed about that with Frank Ostini, because I think he caused the demise of Merlot. So we pulled out Merlot after that movie, half of it. And then everybody anywhere planted Pinot Noir where it shouldn't be planted. And that was actually the case for Merlot too, because it's a very popular
Yeah.
red
Merlot was
wine.
like,
People are planting, it was in the Central Valley, it was in places, it just made red wine, right? So what happens is like you tend to get these trends of like, you know, wine trends, and then everybody plants it, and it takes you 3 years before you get
that's
a
the
wine.
problem with wine trends, is it takes a
Yeah.
while. It's not like you can turn it the next day and do something different.
So Chenin grows a very big cluster, and you can make, I mean, you can get, if you overcrop it, you can get a lot of gallonage out of each cluster, so.
Also, one of the reasons it was very popular
Yes,
early on, you can make a lot of wine from it.
Right,
So let's
07.
talk, let's talk about these guys.
07.
Like Matt was saying, the initial thing that you can look at, if you look through your glass, at the 07, it's just kind of more red, brickish type color, as opposed to a little bit more garnet. 17.
You like it better?
The 7? Yeah, it's actually got more structure still than the newer one.
Yeah, it's got a lot of spice, like allspice.
Yeah, and you start to get a little bit of that leather on the nose, and then you get from older wines, and there's kind of this older wine character starts to come out, but not much. It's still pretty fresh.
Acid still comes through.
Yeah, for sure. Still very much alive.
So I didn't know what I was doing here in Buttonwood in 07.
Had you made Cab Franc before?
No,
Yeah.
no. I came from Goodhead. We made Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc, and before that I worked at Foley, right down the street.
Yeah. Pinot and Chard, basically.
Pinot Chard, there was
Little
a little bit of Bordeaux from La Cuesta. So I picked the grapes, I took them off their stems, and I added yeast, and it's still good.
It's so good.
It's still good.
It's delicious.
But there was, there was a very, the 7s tend to be, I don't know, for some reason, do you see this in Central Coast? 7s seem to be always really nice years. I mean, 7 was good, 97 was amazing, we still have some 97s here.
17 is a little funny,
A little funny, 17,
depending on when you pick.
yeah. But I'm happy with this, seems
We were
good.
going into a recession and the wine was getting good. 2007 and 2008 was the recession. And we were
Well,
making
08
great
was really a
wine.
nasty year for wine too, because we had 3 bad frosts. But
No, this seems like I wouldn't even. I mean, it's at the peak thing, but I think it's going to hold that peak for another few years right now.
too,
It seems
yeah.
like it.
It's
Yeah.
really good. Very good.
Amazing.
That was your
So
first
which
year,
sausage
that was my
goes with
first year.
that?
Yeah, what sausage goes with that?
Not bad for
And what condiments go with anything? You
How's
guys,
that peach? Did you guys try the peach jam? How'd that work out?
Oh, I always buy it every time.
Put on the
I get it.
sausage? Yeah, good.
We didn't see that. We didn't get that.
But we,
Ah.
we bring a bunch of people up here, so we always buy jars and stuff.
Do we have the peach jam back downstairs?
we do, yes,
Good.
yes. I love the 17.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So they kind of call us Blanc and Franc here, right? It's like, Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc. We grow a bunch of other things, and you guys, who are wine club members, get to see a lot of that. A lot of the weird things we do.
What percentage is Cab Franc of your production?
But we have 4.5 acres out of 42.
But what overall, like production-wise, annually?
Well, it's hard to say because we make so now we make Carbonique, and we make this, it's gotta be a better word than regular Cab Franc, right?
Traditionally.
Traditional method.
Traditionally.
Traditionally. And then we put it into Classic Cuvée, which is our table wine,
Yeah.
and we put it into Travain, which is our flagship red. So we made about, in 2017, we made about 400 cases of traditional. We made about 75 cases of Carbonique, and the rest of it went into either Classic Cuvée or Travain.
Yeah. It's a good amount, but it's not. I mean, you actually make a lot of different wines. It's not just Blancs and Francs.
No, we make it, I mean, the sales department's always like, stop making so many. And you too, because I'm always sending you one, just like, really, what is this?
Oh, you're not even the worst. There's enough to get like 3 cases of wine at once from one winery.
Yeah.
Wow, it's going to take a while.
We got about 3 minutes left.
So, first of all, there's a number of things we have to talk about. Very important.
In 3 minutes.
3 minutes. One is there's this amazing book coming out that we are very pleased to be invited to participate in. Matt is writing all about this book, and McDuff Everton, who's a local photographer, I have no idea. I mean, McDuff is a friend of the family that owns Buttonwood here, and he took Seaborn's wedding photographs.
Yeah, he's been around.
And
for a
no
while.
idea that McDuff, who's an amazing photographer, but he's like a famous amazing.
Yeah, he shot for National Geographic and Continental publications for 30, 40 years. So.
So the whole story of Buttonwood and really nice pictures of Brett and I, mine are Photoshop too, they're normal, are in this book, and it's coming out.
It comes out in, I think it's the first week of November now. So we sent our final proofs this week. It's called Vines and Vision, the winemakers of Santa Barbara County. It's 632 pages, a fairly exhaustive portrayal of Santa Barbara County wine. So we have about 100, it's not everybody, you can't fit everybody, but it's about 100 different wineries that are profiled, fairly in-depth profiles that I wrote, and then a bunch of introductory chapters and some trend chapters and that sort of thing. So it should be kind of the Bible of Santa Barbara County wine for the next decade or so. I don't think anyone's going to try to do what we did because it was a real long ordeal. But we're almost at the finish line. We have about 7,000 books showing up sometime in late October, early November, and then we get rid of those, and then we're done. It's almost actually all sold out, which is really cool. But all the wineries that are featured will have copies for sale too. So we sold to them at wholesale, and they'll be, so you'll be able to buy from Buttonwood copy as well. So yeah, thank you for the plug. It's a pretty mammoth undertaking.
So you have it from the beginning of when the whole valley first started?
Yeah, there's a history chapter. I talk about the Franciscans, in the 1700s, and then actually the oldest winery in Santa Barbara County is in Galita from early 1800s. It's where the friars made wine when the mission was still a functional, Catholic mission. It's actually up. It's by my house. It's up Patterson. You can't go there. It's off limits. But the old adobe structure is there.
Santa Cruz Island?
There's Santa Cruz Island. There's a whole part about Santa Cruz Island in the book. Yeah, it's pretty exhaustive. So.
So then the other most important thing we have to do today is tomorrow is Matt's birthday. We have these beautiful, you can see these little things for everybody that are made by Amy Dixon at the baker's table. Amy, she's an amazing baker, and if you don't go to the baker's table, you definitely should. Trying to come up with something that was birthday cake-ish.
Yeah.
And wouldn't melt in 112 degrees was quite the challenge.
Well, and honestly, the white thing looks like a sausage on top of it.
Kind of does. So, but we wanted to make sure we were.
There you go.
There you go. Socially distant, self-serve, whatever. We have to do these days. So, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I think this would go perfectly with Cab Franc. Yes. Thank you. So I guess we're wrapping up here, huh?
We're wrapping up the live.
Hey.
Any more questions?
What's the fourth one?
The last one.
So there were
That's probably your 07.
Probably your 07 or your 17.
No, we had the
So
other
we
seven
had
here.
the 17.
Okay, then it's a 17.
We had the 17.
so
There were two carbonics up front. That was the cold.
It was a cold and warm carbonic.
Oh, okay.
Whatever, they're good.
Any other questions? Any questions from outside the winery there, Sarah? Nothing?
No, with all the pictures and stuff that you have.
Thank you all very much for tuning in.
Cheers.
Here's that.
Don't you eat all?
Thank you.
Ciao, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
What did they say?
All right.
Oh my God.
Like a cake chocolate.
Yeah, there you go.
Space.